This episode is sponsored by Brewers Decorators Centres in support of raising mental health awareness in the UK construction industry. Brewers Decorators Centres have over 200 stores nationwide and offer free next day delivery on all the best brands such as Albany, Benjamin Moore, Dulux, Graco, Mercer, Johnson's, Zinza and Thermogard. And the Talking Tradesman podcast would like to offer our sincere thanks for offering your support in continuing to grow the podcast and reach as many people as possible. Thank you. On to the episode. Hello and welcome to the Talking Tradesman. Today I am joined by Jake from Jake and Vac, all the way down from Wakefield. Jake, thanks for making the effort to come down, mate, and let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk, mate. Yeah.
How are you, mate? You good?
I'm all good, yeah.
Fantastic.
About a 2.5 hour drive, so.
See, look at the effort people are putting in to come down on the podcast, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much for making the effort to come all the way down.
Worries.
And you were just telling me that you're staying overnight in Brum tonight.
Staying overnight, so yeah, nice chilled one tonight.
Nice chilled one tonight. Jake, just repeat for me what you told me your itinerary is over the next few days.
So a few drinks tonight, obviously staying over in Brum, and then stag do tomorrow in Manchester, home Sunday, then I'm going to Belfast on Monday, drinking Monday, Tuesday in Belfast, back to work Wednesday.
See, ironically, as I said before, I'm going to Dublin on Sunday, which is actually St. Patrick's Day. On the Monday, do you reckon there'll still be a Paddy's Day hangover? Look, I've not been over there.
Yeah, because it's quite a big thing, isn't it? So I would imagine it goes on for days. I even think in Manchester is going to be mental on Saturday because of St. Paddy's Day as well.
Oh, of course.
And Ireland are playing in the Six Nations as well.
It's going to be busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to get there, you've got to go back up home all the way to Wakefield to then come back down to Manchester.
Yeah, but I'm getting the train, so I'd have to drive at least.
So what we're going to do now, ladies and gents, is have a conversation about burnouts. But yeah, mate, that's a heavy weekend you've got, mate. As with anybody's story, Jake, they all have a beginning. We'll discuss what you do for a living and how you ended up there, but we'll start way back before that, mate. So how were things for you growing up?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky in the respect that both my parents are still together. So I've always had both parents in my life. Not many people do these days, I don't think.
I think it's probably the rarity. I don't know what the statistics are, but I'd say it's definitely a rarity now.
So I grew up in Wakefield on a council estate called Lupsit, which if you're from round where I'm from, you'll know it's quite rough. So I grew up in a council house. Both my mum and dad 17 when they had me.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a very young family. Council estate. We actually got burgled when I was 2. They took everything and trashed the house and everything.
You're joking?
No. But my dad joined the fire service. I think it was not long after I was born. So he then got sort of a steady income from that.
So is your dad still in the fire service?
He is now, yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's also a joiner as well, so he does
both.
Firemen get 4 days off a week, so they have time for most firemen have a second trade. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and I think my mum just sort of bounced around jobs when I was younger, and they eventually saved up enough money for us to get our first house that they bought, which was still in Lupsit, but it was on a slightly nicer estate.
Step up, yeah.
Yeah, sort of a little step up, but still not the nicest. I mean, I remember waking up one morning and the block of flats opposite us were just torched, and it'd been petrol bombs that night. And
Christ,
my dad, being a fireman, had to run out and show the firemen where like the hydrants and all.
I mean, first of all, mate, you must have been the cool kid, at the story time or whatever, when the people are like, "What do your dad do?"
Yeah.
To be the kid with the fireman dad's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it gives you, growing up in an area like that, it gives you something. Like, I think it gives, there's value to it.
Yeah.
It gives you a bit of sort of strength, determination. Toughens you up. Whether that's the right thing to say, I don't know.
I guess it does, yeah.
But yeah, I had similar, mate, throughout my childhood. I spent part of it in quite an affluent area of the town I live in. The town's not particularly affluent, but the nicer end of town, as it were. And then I spent the other half of it on a council estate, and grew up in a mixture between private housing and council housing. So I played both cards. So I can understand it, mate.
I think another story from that estate was we actually weren't allowed to leave his house one day because somebody had a crossbow in one of the block of flats.
You say that again?
Somebody had a crossbow, and the police told everyone they couldn't leave the houses
You
because
had to stay in the house because somebody had a
yeah, he
crossbow.
was pointing out the window and stuff. So until they could get to him to arrest him, nobody was allowed to leave the house.
Christ.
So
How did it play out? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I was too young, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming they must have. He didn't shoot anyone, so
Well, they didn't shoot him or to the
I
point.
don't think they did. I think they managed to arrest him or talk him down or something like that.
So it was lively.
Yeah, it
How
wasn't.
was how was school for you, mate?
School was good. Luckily, my mum and dad managed to get me in a school that wasn't in that area. So the local school was like just up the road, and they managed to get me in a school like in the next town on, which was Horbury, which is quite a nice sort of town.
Okay.
So I went to quite a nice school. I went to quite a nice high school as well, which was next door to the primary school. And I did quite well at school. I'm quite naturally academic, so
Oh, okay.
didn't really have to try too hard for my exams. Like some people would have to revise hours and hours. I'm just quite. I just remember stuff well. So
But to be honest, the school system is pretty much that. It's just memory
yeah,
games, isn't it?
it is. Yeah,
I mean, sounds like I was relatively similar to you. I did pretty well through school, but the reason I asked that question is it seems like quite a lot of people that end up being self-employed or in the trades sort of have the same sort of outlook on school. They tended to have not done so well
yeah.
academically, generally speaking.
I
But
think on paper I should have been like I don't know, something that would use academics, but it's just not me. So
yeah, it's not for everyone, mate, is
no,
it? And at the end of the day, you're at work for a long period of your life. So, me personally, um, I'm similar in terms. I can't think of anything worse than say being sat in an office or behind a desk.
yeah,
That's not knocking anybody that does. It's just personally my own choice. It's not for me. But yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Just because you're academically gifted doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna
no, not
end
at
up
all.
sat
I
behind a
think
desk.
I started working from a young age. I did a paper round, and I got my first job when I was 15 in like a shop fitting company, and I was earning like 50 quid just for working a Saturday, and I think I got a bit of a taste for like actually earning money
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then the whole prospect to me of going to uni to become in debt just doesn't sit right in my head, unless you're going to use it, obviously.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't. I know I probably say two out of my six friends have used their uni degrees. So
Yeah, I mean, mate, we could have a whole conversation about that because I've got some quite strong opinions when it comes to the education system and the way that it's directed. And I think part of the problem there is there's people such as yourself or maybe me that can do well academically, but you just get railroaded at school.
yeah,
It's kind of like, well, if you have the capability to go to further education, that's where they want you to go.
yeah. Well, I
You
did quite well in GCSEs, so then my mum was like, "You going to college?" And I
yeah,
didn't want to,
yeah.
but she made me do 1 year, and I hated it.
What did you do out of interest at college?
Maths, physics, geography, and IT.
You know, there's a whole handful there.
Yeah, I did the first years. I did the AS levels.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I did that. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't really. I think I got D's across the board,
So
and
AS levels weren't around for that long, were they? From what they're not there anymore, are
I'm
they?
not sure. To be
I
fair,
thought they'd revert. How old are you, if you don't mind
I'm
me asking?
27.
Oh, they must be around a while then, because I've got over 10 years on
Yeah,
you.
AS is like the half of an A level, I
Year
think.
one,
Yeah,
yeah. I thought they'd reverted. So when I was at school, I think I was either the first or the second year to do AS levels.
right.
They were like brand new when I first started. Prior to that, you had to, if you were going to do A levels, it was a 2 year thing. You had a test at the end. But what that obviously meant was that some people who failed their A levels were giving away 2 years
Yeah,
essentially. So they reverted to the ASA2 thing. And yeah, I was the first year through to do the ASs. And I did my AS levels and then bailed on it. Didn't do
yeah.
the,
Well,
well, I was asked not to come back technically. So,
all right. Yeah, well, I did the first year, and I did all right to say I didn't really put any effort in, but I just didn't want to be there. And I told my mum that. And at the time, I was training to be a chef. I was working at like a restaurant, and I was doing like an NVQ whilst working.
okay.
So I did like a food hygiene and stuff like that. But it was like an NVQ whilst you worked there.
Yeah.
So I was training to do that. I was a carvery chef originally. So I left college to do that. But I always knew I wanted to be in the military. And I actually wanted to be a pilot in the RAF.
Right. Okay.
originally. So anyway, I worked as a chef for about 3 years whilst applying for the RAF.
You're actually considering. I think you would maybe be the 15th guest. Three of you now have been chefs.
Is
So
it?
straight out, shout out to Joe Baker and Rich from Major League Painters, both former chefs as
Oh,
well.
really?
So yeah, it's a strangely large demographic of
Yeah, I
you
did.
chefs that are coming
Well, I
through.
worked as a carvery chef, and then they'll sort of move me like to the line where you make like the actual meals.
Mm.
And then I did a short stint in a bakery, but I couldn't deal with getting up at 3 a.m.
Yeah, that sounds tough.
They get up early, the bakers.
The thing that always comes back from the lads that have been chefs seems to be like long hours.
I used to work 12-hour days, 5 days a week, so 8 till 8 usually.
That's tough, isn't it?
And I'm a bit like OCD as well, and
Mm.
obviously not everyone is. So the like when I'm working, the area has to be clean,
Yeah.
whereas others are like messy workers, and I can't
Yeah.
work with
Right.
those
Yeah.
people. So I used to get really, really stressed working with certain people.
Yeah. But you always knew you wanted to go into the military. Was there any link between the chef and the military, or
No, I didn't want to be a chef in the military.
right?
My mum was a chef for a short, well, like a caterer for a short while. So I don't know if
Mm.
that's got something to do with it, but yeah, I just knew. I probably from like I don't know, maybe like the start of high school, I wanted to be in the military in some
Mm.
way. I did want to be a commercial pilot at first,
Okay.
like a Virgin pilot, stuff like that. But the cost of the training is absurd.
Really?
Even with a scholarship, I think I managed to get a scholarship, and they still wanted 50 grand.
Do you know what? I've got a memory actually at the time because I've mentioned a few times there was a point in my life when I did a different job in order to get my mortgage, and I worked as a bailiff.
Yeah,
And there was a young lad that joined the company to do that because, again, you could earn quite good money. And he joined because he was training to be a pilot. And I remember him saying he had to rack up so many private flying hours
right.
in order to then get his commercial license, but he had to have X amount of hours and it was all self funded.
Yeah,
So he was literally doing this job to earn money to then go down to the airfield and fly solo or with, I don't know the details of it, but he was having to put so many hours in the air funded by himself
yeah,
in order to have a shot at
yeah.
being a
It's
commercial
not
pilot.
cheap at all. I mean, I remember my dad taking me to this like seminar in Leeds,
Mm.
and it was for like people who wanted to become a pilot, and they'd select a few of you to get this scholarship. And they went through the presentation, and they were like, "Yeah, so with a scholarship, it's only £50,000." And I was like, "Only?
You have to buy the scholarship as well.
No." So without the scholarship, it'd be more than £50,000 for the training. And I was
Christ.
just like,
Is it a guaranteed pass?
"No, I don't think so. I don't think so."
Jesus.
So yeah. Anyway, I realised that wasn't an option. And then I joined Air Cadets,
Okay.
and that's when I
Oh, I guess, of course. So then, if you went military-wise and got the training within the military, you haven't got to
yeah.
pay for it yourself. And,
So I went Air Cadets that way, and I did some flying, and I did half a gliding scholarship. And if anyone wants to like your kids to like experience some awesome stuff, Air Cadets it's amazing. You go on like
okay.
camps and stuff. I used to go to camps to like RAF bases, and
Hmm.
they let you shoot, and you do all sorts.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never, see, military service has never been my thing, to be honest. So I know very little about
Yeah.
it, which is why I'm interested to have the conversation that we're going to have. Just by the way, before I forget, that bottle of water is yours.
All right,
Jake, I
thank you.
forgot to mention it to you pre-record. So I do provide my guests with hydration.
Thank you.
Guest care, that is. Responsible podcasting. That's
Absolutely.
what we're going to call it. But yeah, sorry, mate. So you were doing the cadets.
Yeah, so I joined Air Cadets, and then I eventually got around to applying for the RAF. I was 17 at the time. So I applied for the pilot, did the medical, the aptitude test, which was 7 hours long.
What did that consist of?
You sat in a chair with a computer in front of you, and for 7 hours it threw maths, English, science questions at you.
For 7 hours?
For 7 hours. I think you got an hour break to take. You could split it up as you wanted, so you could take it in like 10-minute like stints if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I didn't pass for the pilot, but I passed for air traffic control.
Okay.
So I thought I would take that as like a way in, and maybe I could transfer to be a pilot later on while I was in. So anyway, I took that, and then stupidly went on a night out and broke my foot, which delayed me joining for 2 years.
Really? 2 years?
Yeah, they
Was
said
that because you missed intakes or?
yeah, because I missed intake, and they said that you needed so long for your injury to recover before you went into basic training and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't be bothered waiting 2 years. So I just started looking at other jobs within the military that sort of took my fancy, and ended up at the assumption that I wanted to be a submariner.
So,
I went from
so I was going to say the polar opposite of being as high as possible to literally being under the sea. Yeah, that's a bit of a contrast, mate.
I think I just wanted something different.
That's different
to the norm. Yeah.
So did you actually apply to, was it the Navy in general or a submariner?
Yeah, the Navy. It's all through the Navy. Yeah. So when I let my foot reheal, everything like that, I still had another year to wait till I could apply for the RAF. So then I applied for the Navy because they don't care that you've already applied for the RAF. You can just apply.
And they weren't bothered about the foot?
No.
Right.
I don't think I told them actually.
Oh, right. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, I applied for the Navy then when I was 18. Got accepted and started basic training when I was 19. January 2017.
Okay.
That's when I started it's 10 weeks is the Navy, 10-week basic training.
10-week basics. And how did the journey take you? So when you applied, was that directly to go into submarines?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you knew from point one you were going into submarines. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone who joins the Navy or even like the Navy Air Corps all does the same basic training.
Right.
It's just like a scripted.
So you do your basic, then you go off in your directions.
Then you go off and you learn your trades or whatever.
What made you pick submarines?
I think one was money.
Is it pay better?
They get paid a lot more than surface fleet.
Yeah.
And two was something just different. I think I wanted that when somebody asks you what you do and you say I'm a Royal Navy submariner, I just wanted that shock from people.
Yeah. Well, it gets you, mate. It's a very rare thing. I bet I wouldn't even want to hazard the guess at the percentage of people that have even been on a submarine, let alone served in the Navy on submarines. So how soon after starting your training did you actually end up on a sub?
So it's 10 weeks basic training, just 10 weeks of getting grilled and running and all sorts of like PT and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Basically making you into a soldier sort of thing. And then I did 2 years in Portsmouth, which was all classroom based, sort of learning. I had to learn. So with submarines, you have to learn your surface fleet equivalent job as well.
Okay.
Because you are going to be qualified to work on a ship as well as a submarine.
Right.
So you have to learn all the ship systems. Because I was a weapons engineer and like a communications engineer as well. So you have to learn all the systems that are on a surface ship and then do tests and everything, pass all them. That was 2 years long.
Okay.
And then you go up to Scotland, which is where all the submarines are based. And you do a 10-week, what's called a BSQ. It's a submariner qualification. And basically, you have to know whatever class of submarine you get assigned to, you have to know everything about it, where every little valve is. Because when you're down and you're at sea, if there's a fire in that compartment, you need to know where to isolate that fire. And if there's a fire or if there's a high pressure air leak or whatever, you need to know where the valve is to shut.
So everyone is trained in everything?
Not specific job roles, but everyone is trained in firefighting. Everyone's trained in isolating certain systems.
Right.
So everyone has to be able to know what to do in any emergency sort of thing.
And your specific role was weapons?
Weapons and communications, so like sending and receiving signals and stuff like that, which is the submarine's only.
And how Yeah, I mean, I've got a million and one questions, mate, to be fair. I mean, first of all, what I will say is the thought of being on a submarine terrifies me. Like, it would not be for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I can't imagine it's for many
No,
people. To be fair,
I wouldn't class myself as claustrophobic, but there's certain things, I don't know why, but anything under the ground, like, you see these cave, like the people that squeeze
yeah, I could
into.
not do that.
No, but mate, I put a submarine in the same category as that.
I think you'd be surprised how big they are.
The thought of being under something, that's what my problem is. Weirdly, because essentially an aeroplane is just a tube in the sky. I'm happy to get in that tube.
Yeah,
But you stick me in a tube I don't want to get in a tube under the water, mate. I got to be
but
honest.
when you worked on a submarine when it was in port, and when you
Mm,
worked on a submarine when you were under the sea, it felt no different.
really?
No,
So was there no, like, when you were submerged, was there no sound or could you hear?
and hear a thing unless you were. We have people that work on sonar and stuff, but
Yeah,
unless you were on a sonar kit, you wouldn't hear a thing.
stupid question here, but you couldn't hear like whales or.
Sonar people could, like the
Okay.
people who work on sonar,
But that doesn't come through into the
doesn't
actual
come
sub.
through the hull. No,
You don't hear like clinking or banging or.
no.
What about like pressure pops and cracks?
So it depends how deep you go. You do actually get leaks.
Oh fuck no. No, mate. If I'm on a submarine and it's leaking, oh no.
Only drips though. Only drips.
That's enough. That's enough. I would not want to see water. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so well, tell me a bit about it, mate. Like how, from the point of joining the Navy, when was the first time you went under?
I think it took probably about three years until I actually went to sea on a submarine.
And how was that first experience?
Strange, very strange. Quite nerve wracking, obviously. Yeah, I mean, you sort of sail out on the surface, and one of my jobs was to sit. Have you seen like the submarine's got a fin on top?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
used to stand on the top of the fin
Okay.
because like everyone has like sub roles as well,
Yeah.
and mine was Morse code. So I used to stand on the top with a big flashing lamp.
Yeah.
And if there was any other ships or submarines, I used to speak to them in Morse code
Okay.
because it was like the most effective way of communicating.
Yeah.
So that was one of my sub roles. So, which was quite a good one to be fair, because I got to sail out.
Get up.
I got to sail out on the surface, and I got to stand up on the surface while we sailed through. I've even been through the Norwegian fjords and stuff
Wow.
on the surface and stuff like that. So
That's cool.
yeah, and then when you dive, it's like you can do the Michael Jackson thing where he leans forward.
Yeah.
You can do that because
everything's on the tilt.
Yeah, everything's on the tilt. Yeah, so that was quite scary. Well, the first time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And how long were you submerged for?
It's different for every submarine. So we have multiple classes of submarines. So we have the bigger ones, which are the nuclear deterrents, which are the ones that go to sea for months on end.
Yeah.
They carry the Trident nuclear missiles.
Did you ever do any of those?
I didn't go on those, no. I never got assigned to those. But they go for, used to be 3 months. You're talking more 5-6 months at a time now, which I didn't do, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, that
hats off to the people who do work.
Absolutely, yeah, hats off. And I guess it takes, I guess like anything, you get trained and you get used to it. But from an outside perspective, like me now, I'm sat thinking, Jesus Christ, like.
My next door neighbour actually worked on a.
Two of you in such close proximity.
Literally moved in to my house. Got speaking to him. He worked on the same base as me.
No way.
He just worked on a different class of submarine, so we ended up car sharing to work and stuff. Yeah.
Fair play, mate. It's a remarkably small world at times.
I don't know what the chances of that are, but it must be slim.
And how many people were on a submarine when you were on?
Mine were the smaller, what they call fleet class, like the fleet ready ones. I think on paper it's 98, which is what we learned, but you're probably looking more like 130, something like that.
Okay. And what, like you personally, what was the longest you spent under?
A month, I think, was the longest I did. Because the boats I were on were sort of ones that used to travel somewhere, pop up, pop up, stuff like they used to do that. So
a month in a metal tube with 130 odd people. I mean, how was it, mate?
Not as bad as people think. You worked 6 hours on, 6 hours off constantly.
Okay.
That was the shift
Yes,
pattern.
yeah, because is it always lit in there?
Yeah,
Because I guess underwater, depending how deep you are, it's always dark.
yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah. I mean, the submarine's always lit
Yeah.
because there's either a day shift or a night shift on. So it's 6 hours on, 6 hours off, and it depends what branch you are, like what department you work in, as to how busy you are, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in like my 6 hours on, there's two of us, so we'd sort of rotate and stuff. So somebody could go chill out, get a cuppa. He comes back, I might go chill out, get a cuppa. There always had
Okay.
to be someone in our office, at least one person.
So when you say someone in your office, that makes me think that it was big. But
Uh,
I mean, how wide? Because right, okay, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, Jake. When I think submarine, I'm thinking no wider than this room,
yeah,
and people are generally like having to walk, and when they pass each other, you're having to go sideways.
yeah, it's like the corridors are like that.
See that? Yeah, no, that's a big no for me.
Yeah, but like the office I worked in was, I don't know, maybe where that partition ends there,
Mm.
follow that across, and that was like our office sort of thing.
Okay.
But we had like loads of kit in there, like communications equipment and
Well,
computers and all sorts.
if I had a hat on, I'd tip it to you. Like, I mean, fair play for doing that job. I mean, one, it's incredibly different, and most people are never going to be able to say that they've worked on, or let alone even stood on a submarine.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, what was your? How long did you do it?
I was in the Navy for 6.5 years, something like that. So I did
Mm,
about 3 years on submarines. Did it through COVID and stuff like that as well.
yeah.
We worked on like a 2 week on, 2 week off rota during COVID. But yeah, it was, I would say, definitely worthwhile.
Was there any like hairy moments?
Um, Not for me, but if I mean it's on the news, so I'm allowed to talk about it. There was
Mm,
a submarine that crashed into it was either an oil tanker or a shipping container
yeah.
ship, and it crashed. There was just a problem with the navigation system. And there was one that ran ashore as well.
So when you say the one that crashed, what crashed and sunk,
It
or
didn't sink, no.
no?
I mean,
Okay.
it crashed, and I mean, like, I think everything on board ended up getting dislodged, like, even like cabinets that were bolted in and everything.
Mm,
They all got dislodged. I think there were quite a few injuries, obviously, with
I'd imagine.
they
Yeah.
don't travel fast. They only travel about 30 mile an hour top speed.
That's a lot underwater, though, mate. Isn't
Yeah.
it? To be honest.
So, and there was one that ran ashore as well. It actually ran ashore on a beach.
See, I'd be happy with that.
That was another
I
problem.
could take that. Like, run me ashore. That's fine. The thought of the other is where my head goes.
Yeah, but I think the last fatality was, I think it was early 2000s, and there was a fire
Mm,
on board one. I think only one person died, which is just shows the level of
yeah.
firefighting that they actually teach you, that only one person actually died.
Well, I guess with something so high risk in that, if something goes wrong, it's pretty serious consequences. The
Yeah,
training's got to be that much higher,
it was.
hasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was an oxygen. We have oxygen candles for emergencies,
Mm,
and I'm pretty sure one just, it was unstable and it just
went off.
went off. Yeah,
You know, man.
and it buckled. I think it buckled the door to the compartment so they couldn't get out. And I'm pretty sure four of them put the fire out with their hands.
With their
Yeah,
hands. Oof, nice. Yeah. Well, as I say, mate, it's a hell of a story to tell, isn't it? What was the purpose of the submarines in terms of, you were going around? What was the purpose of it?
what, for the navy?
See, yeah, because my idea of a submarine is kind of that by nature they're covert, they can't be seen, they're kind of like quite. It's got a secretive
Yeah, yeah,
feel to it.
they are covert, very covert when they're submerged.
Yeah,
The ones that carry the Trident missile are they never come up.
yeah. So not that I know a lot, but I know a little bit about those, and that they sort of travel around the world, don't they? And
Yeah,
nobody ever knows where they
I
are.
think
And
only two people know where they are at all times.
or subs. What was the, if you're allowed to say, like, but what was the mission, as it were?
Some stuff obviously is not allowed to be spoken about, but a lot of it was show of presence
Mm,
to other countries. You travel a lot of time. You travel to other countries just to show.
just to pop up
A
and
lot of it's just
go.
showing off. This
Yeah,
is look at our submarines.
posturing.
Yeah,
Which I guess that's part of world politics, isn't it, to be honest?
Yeah, and a lot of it is training as well. So we'd go, two of our submarines would go to sea to train with each other.
Okay.
So like we'd play like cat and mouse, and we'd actually play games where we try and detect each other, and the first person that was detected would lose.
And what were the consequences?
There wasn't any really, just bragging rights.
Right,
Yeah,
okay. I
but
mean, generally speaking, mate, how was like Navy life?
it was great. I actually really enjoyed it. The obviously the downsides is working away.
Mm.
I used to work in Scotland, and a lot of the time, if you stayed on base, it was quite boring over a weekend if you weren't at sea. So I used to travel back every weekend, which is like 8 hours driving every weekend.
Yeah.
So that was one downside. And then, I mean, it's great when you're single because you've not got a care in the world. But then when you start getting into relationships and stuff, and I actually met my girlfriend in the Navy. She was in the Navy. But she
Okay.
worked in Portsmouth and I worked in Scotland.
Right, yeah, about as logistically bad as you could get.
Yeah, about 9 hours difference. Yeah,
What did she do in the Navy?
she worked on ships. She was
Okay.
surface fleet. Yeah,
Right.
so I met her in phase 2 training.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is she
because
still in the Navy?
she's left also now.
Right.
She left about a year after I left.
And what, I mean, fast forwarding to that point, what was the reason for you leaving?
I actually got medically discharged.
Okay.
So even before I joined the Navy, I used to get shin splints and stuff when I run. But they were never bad enough to care about. It just sort of niggles and stuff.
Mm.
And I used to be quite good at running. I used to run like 10k in like 40 minutes and stuff. So
Wow.
not bad timings.
Yeah, that's good.
And then over the years, it's just got progressively worse. And I've had a few injuries, like I broke my ankle during lockdown and stuff. And I think none of it's helped. And then I started getting problems with my feet. Like on a morning, I used to get like plantar fasciitis, which is like
Oh, I've had it, mate. Yeah.
chronic pains like
Yeah,
underneath
yeah.
your feet.
Yeah.
It just got to the point where I physically couldn't pass a fitness test anymore. Not because of
Right.
my fitness, but
Because
because
of
of
the
my legs
injuries.
and my feet and
That plantar how do you say it?
fasciitis, I
Yeah,
think it
mate,
is.
it's horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. I still suffer with it now to the point where I wear like trainers with sole, the arch support at
Yeah.
work.
I used to have to sleep with like boots on that pulled your toes back
Really,
and stuff like that.
I've got on the bottom of my foot where the tendon is, I've got like knots in the tissue on both feet.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's trade related or
Maybe.
whatnot, but as I say now, I've got like sole supporting trainers. That makes a real difference. When I don't wear them at work, I'm okay, like pottering about normally, but if I'm at work and I work a full day, I guess maybe it's the bending. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I can really tell if I don't wear them, it
Yeah.
throbs. So
Yeah.
benefits of getting old, mate. I mean, I say that you're still relatively young, but
It's
yes,
definitely not my fitness that was the problem anyway.
mm,
But yeah, I went through like all the channels of, I saw every Navy physio on earth, every Navy doctor, and none of them could figure out why I had these pains. Um, so you end up on like a remedial thing where you can't pass your fitness test for so long.
yeah,
Then they start thinking about getting rid of you. Getting rid of you is a bad word, but
yeah. Well, it's being blunt. It is what it
yeah.
is. Yeah,
So yeah, I ended up on like what they call MBOS, which is like medical discharge board, and they assess. It's like the Navy's highest doctor, highest physio, and they assess you, and they assess if you're fit for duty anymore. They assess me not fit for duty anymore, so they give you. They're actually really good when they do get rid of you. They're really good at looking after you for so long to help you find a job, and um, they even put you into contact with like recruitment companies, and you get so much money to spend on doing courses that you might want to do if you wanted to become like an electrician or
yeah.
anything like that, and they pay you for so long as well. So
That's good to hear.
so you're not like on your ass
I
immediately.
was going to ask, mate, to be honest. I mean, how was that moment when they said to you that you're medically discharged? How did that feel?
I was expecting it, but I wasn't, because I've heard of people with worse injuries to mine who they've kept, but they just sort of put them on like maybe like an office based job.
Yeah.
So part of me was thinking they're gonna discharged me, part of me was thinking they might just keep me and put me in an office-based role. So yeah, when they actually said, yeah, you're discharged, it was a bit of a, I don't know what the word is, bit of a shock. But it wasn't at the same time. Quite a weird feeling.
Yeah, and because I mean, you said you've always wanted to be. I mean, I guess how did you feel? Because you said you always wanted to be in the military. So did you feel that actually you'd served your time, you'd ticked that box, and were ready to move, or was
Yeah,
that
I
like
never saw it as a job for life.
okay?
A lot of people do like 30, some people do like 30, 40 years. I was probably more planning to do like the 12, which is half pension.
Okay.
That was probably more my goal, the 12-year mark. Because some people absolutely love it, live it, breathe it, and they'll move up to Scotland, take all the family with them, and that's their job. Whereas I didn't want to move to Scotland. I'm quite happy where I live, and so yeah, I didn't really see it as a job for life. But yeah, it's definitely a tick in the box, and I quite agree with some countries still have like national service.
Yeah.
I think we should, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong opinion, but I'm not necessarily against it. I
Yeah, I
think the
think you
younger generation.
learn so much from it, and it would definitely. I think it would help a lot of people who don't have a clue what they want to do. They might join up, really enjoy it, and they might stay.
Yeah.
So
But I think the way the world is now, though, mate, it's never. I mean, there was talk, wasn't there, a couple of months ago when I personally I got to the point where I don't really pay a lot of attention to the news anymore. I'm not a
yeah,
big fan of the media. But there was talk that sort of it was my lad actually that said to me one day, he was like, "Oh, Dad, have you heard they're talking about like conscripting people because of this Russia thing?" I was like, "There's no way."
they would never be able to make anyone do anything now.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought if the UK did get to that point of conscription, I can't. Well, no, I just don't think it's a possibility
I
anymore.
don't think it is. People have too much, like, not that they'd have too much, but like the freedom that people have now is so much more than it used to be.
There's freedom. I also, again, we could have an entire podcast on this and probably upset a load of people, but there's, I don't think there's the level of respect for the country that there used to be. The patriotism's probably at an all-time low,
Yeah,
and not, not that's not knocking the people that aren't patriotic. To me, it's more that the government have done a hell of a lot of stuff that has made people feel that way.
we used to get told that we weren't allowed to wear uniform outside base because we were basically targets for in
Really?
your own country. Yeah. Whereas if you went over to America, they just swan around in the uniform.
Yeah.
They get
Celebrated. They get
yeah.
free food and drinks, and
My one of my bosses actually went to Disneyland, and they asked for some ID. And he showed his military ID, and they said, "Oh my God, sir, why have you queued?"
wow.
He said, and they gave him like fast track tickets and everything.
And the difference that
Yeah,
compared to what you get here, I guess, was that with the uniform thing, was that off the back of the whole like the Lee Rigby
probably.
situation?
Yeah, I think there's been a couple more incidents as well. But you got told to like you can't use Strava, to track your running and stuff because if you go for
Really?
the same run every day at the same time, you created a pattern there where
Yeah.
somebody will know where you're going to be that day. So
Mate, that's I hadn't thought about that.
yeah,
But again, that must play. How did that feel? Because psychologically, that must be a weird one because you're in service essentially to your country's navy, and yet at the same time, you're being told by your country not to wear your uniform for fear of being attacked in your own country, the people that you're in theory defending.
yeah. There's a lot of people who don't like the British military. People who live in
Yeah,
Britain. So
it's a tough one, that mate. It's a tough one. That I can't imagine how that would be. That would feel from your perspective,
yeah,
serving in the military.
and with like technology, like even Snapchat maps, we used to have like seminars every year on social media and what you can and can't post and stuff like that.
I guess, yeah.
Cybersecurity sort of
Stuff that I'd
stuff.
never thought of, mate.
Yeah,
Stuff that I'd never thought of. And I straight away in my head then, my head went, actually, you don't see a lot of people that are in the military posting. Like, no, I was thinking, why don't we see people in the military posting on Instagram? And then I thought, well, it's national security, innit? That's why, because it is a bit more cloak and dagger.
yeah,
But I think you're right. Like, the the reception of the military in America is totally different.
It's completely different, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I never
very
got the
much.
chance to go over, but I know after a submarine's been built, its first trip is always America.
Okay.
And then I know plenty of people who have been, and they just get
Any
genuinely.
reason for that? Why is it always America?
It's just it's like a decent stretch to test the submarine, and
Mind you, actually, mate, that those words "test the submarine."
they get tested before you go,
Yeah, I
obviously, as well.
how no? Somebody's got to be the first, Jake, and
Yeah,
unless
you
they
do.
put them on remote control.
You do a deep dive to test all the leaks.
Fuck that, mate. No. So whoever is that first, is that like an extra job, like the test pilot of a submarine?
No, it's just a normal crew.
I don't know why, but this has just come to me now because that's got to be for everything. That's good. Imagine being the first pilot of a brand new plane
Yeah,
and being the one. Can you go and iron out any creases with this?
Yeah.
But it's same with a sub. Go and test this submarine.
the first thing a submarine does when goes to sea is a deep dive.
Mate, speaking bluntly, fuck that.
I never did a deep dive, but
You never did. So there's a difference in.
it's like a really deep dive to check how the hull deals with the pressure and stuff.
Well, the people that do that have got to have some balls of steel, don't they? Really.
You just pot lucky if you because you get posted to a certain submarine. So if you got posted to one that's being built,
Yeah.
you are going to do a deep dive after it's been built.
Nah, that's not for me, Jake. Honestly, man, I'm sat here horrified now, thinking like being told, right? Yeah, this is the mate. There's something kind of cool. Here's a new submarine that you're the first people on it. Has got kind of like a ooh, that's cool feature, but also you're going to test this on a deep dive. Well, let's hope it passes, eh, lads? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, there's multiple safety measures, and if something went wrong, every single person knows what to do. So
yeah, still not for me, mate. Thank God for people like you, because you wouldn't catch. The British Navy would have no submarines if there were people
there's
like
books
me.
And books and books on board, and like books everywhere. There's SOPs, which is standard operating procedures for everything. EOPs, which is emergency operating procedures.
Hey, listen, mate, if nuts and bolts start pinging across the submarine, you ain't getting that book out, are you? You know what I mean? Nah, not for me, mate. Not for me. Obviously, you got to a point where there was then that transition from your medical discharge. How was the get my words out? How was the transition from military life back to civilian life?
Quite strange, to be fair, because it was like one day you're in the Navy, and then after the phone call to say you've been discharged, that's it. You are no longer insured to work in the Navy. You're not even allowed on a base. So that's literally from that phone call on, you can't go on a Navy base because you're not insured.
Wow.
But like I said, they pay you. I think it's 3 months you get paid after they've discharged you. But yeah, just from that day on, I was just at home. So I just had to start thinking what I wanted to do. Originally, I actually started up just a normal cleaning company because I'm quite OCD, quite a bit of a clean freak.
At this point, mate, explain a little bit about your business and what you do.
So I'm a carpet and upholstery cleaning specialist company, but we do other stuff like mattresses, hard floors, stuff like that. But originally, it was just a cleaning company. So I used to do like domestic cleaning. And that was just so boring for me, anyway. Obviously, some people
off the back of coming out of the Navy, and having to be so clean and methodical.
Probably, I've always been, probably from maybe like 16 onwards. I've always been quite clean and tidy, and I've got like OCD with symmetry and all sorts of stuff like that. And my missus gets really annoyed because there's to-do lists all over the house.
Really?
Genuinely, there's just pieces of paper with stuff I need to do.
Oh, you're not a post-it note man, Jake.
Not a post-it note, just a list.
Right, okay.
It's just on like the kitchen worktop because I need to do that today.
Oh, and for yourself?
Yeah.
Right,
and then I've got another list, which is like a long-term to-do list. And then I've got a business to-do list. And I just love a to-do list.
It's organised though, mate, isn't it? And I think people just cope with life differently. And if that helps you cope, then great.
Yeah.
And I've heard quite a few of the guests come on and they mention, I'm OCD. But I think to run your own business, there's got to be elements of that. Is it OCD or is it being driven and being particular and having high standards?
I think it's very low-level OCD because some people with quite severe OCD, it's actually like diagnosed these days, I think.
Yeah, and there's different forms, and I
Yeah,
learnt this the other day. One of the previous guests, Paul, he has OCD, but it relates to it's a particular form of OCD where it's intrusive thoughts,
right.
and he'll have an intrusive thought that will get locked on repeat in his mind for months on end,
Yeah.
which sounded horrific to be honest. And he explained it all, but yeah, I think OCD's got many different levels and facets to it. So. But yeah, so you do, yeah. Wow. Again, mate, take the opportunity to shout out your business. Where can you be found?
Instagram is Jake_N_Vac. Facebook is just Jake and Vac Carpet and Upholstery Cleaning Specialists. And I'm on TikTok as well. But
I'll put all your details in the item description. So that's for anyone that doesn't currently follow Jake, go and follow Jake and Vac on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all your details will be in the bio. But the one thing I've seen, mate, looking on your account, your work is very like, what do they call it? ASMR?
ASMR, yeah.
That's the one. It's one of them like oddly satisfying. How's your following on TikTok? I haven't looked at it, so I don't know genuinely.
I've only been doing TikTok, I think, maybe like 6 months. But I got my first. It's at 1.7 million now, but that's my biggest video. Was
Right. How's your following? How many followers you got?
1,500, something like
Right.
that.
I would imagine, mate, with the work you do, it's like TikTok perfect.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just finding the right things that people want to watch, but also posting what I want to post at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like the stuff that people want to watch, I necessarily don't always want to post that. But the ones I want to post don't do too well, which I don't care because it's what I want to post. I think if you get stuck in the rut of just posting what people want you to post, I think you're not doing it for you then, really.
It is, mate. It's a strange world now, though, because I've got the podcast and I've got my own decorating business, and with the decorating business socials, I keep it very much as like an online portfolio for my customers. They can go on, they can see the work I do.
Yeah.
So I don't really diversify from that. And like you said, there are videos I know I could post that would get better engagement on the platform, but not really put any paying customers in my pocket.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's presenting your business how you want it to be presented.
Yeah.
But we do now live in this strange world of social media where actually, if videos blow up on a regular basis, you can then end up with sponsorships and partnerships, and there is legitimately money to be made. On
finding
socials
that
now.
balance, and it's finding that balance. That's why I do a bit of both. Post the ASMR stuff for people who want to watch it, and then
post it for me, mate. I enjoy watching those.
And then I do the videos where I explain stuff for my customers, so they know what I'm talking about.
Interestingly, I was on. So I recorded an episode of Trade Legends, which should be out in a couple of weeks. But the lad that I was on as a fellow guest was a chap called Sam Draycott. Shout out Sam. Go and check him out on his socials. And he's a farrier.
Right.
But if I get this right, he was something like the second most viewed video on TikTok last year and the most viewed the year before. I think that's right, there and thereabouts. But the opportunities that has now given him in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, I follow him on socials now after meeting him, and like this week he's in Barbados.
Right. Yeah.
And it's all come through, as far as I know, it's come through his social channels. But he's, again, I don't know if you've ever seen those farrier videos.
I have seen some of them, yeah.
I didn't really know what it was about.
It's the hoof stuff, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. But again, oddly satisfying watching them like carve the hoof down.
I found a new account the other day, actually, that I've just become besotted with. Have you heard about, is it thatching, the roofing?
Yeah.
There's a guy and he's
roof.
just snipping like the straw and stuff, and you just sat there just like bewildered.
Isn't it like oddly weird what's hypnotising though? But doing that episode with Sam, I was asking him all these daft questions. Like I'm like, the one thing I had to say, I was like, does it hurt the horse? I know nothing about horses, mate. But this is one of the good things about social media because you can get all this information there. But as I said, I mean, his TikTok videos and YouTube videos have put a whole new different string to his bow. It's a new business almost for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ones I've got 3 that have done 1 million on Facebook and 1 that's done 1 million on TikTok, and they're all like carpet raking. Me just raking a carpet.
Yeah.
There's nothing special. Anyone could rake a carpet.
See, but you say that because you do it day in, day out. Kev, Paint Warrior Kev, who came on the podcast a few episodes back, he blew up on TikTok. And like he said, but all I did was put a simple video of me cutting in around a light socket, which is something that we do in the trade 5 times a day. Some
Yeah.
days you just don't. But these basic things, I guess, that you do day in day out and don't
Yeah.
appreciate, it's like magic to people that don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I guess social media is this very strange beast.
It is. I mean, I think there's so many things you can do to help yourself in the algorithm, but ultimately, I think actually going viral is potluck. I think.
I agree. Yeah, it does seem to be. It does seem to be potluck. There must be something, but there must be some science behind it.
Not completely potluck. Like you can do as much as you can to help you get into the algorithm, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think when one video actually goes mental, I think that is just timing. I think you've just posted at the exact right minute that day.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
No, I think you're right. And the other thing I've noticed personally with social media is that every channel behaves very differently. So I can post the same, because obviously, as you know, with the podcasts, I'll clip them.
Yeah.
And the clips that I can post the exact same clip on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and it will have completely different reactions on it. Even posted at the same identical time, totally different reactions.
Well, that's all I do. I post the same video across all platforms at the same time for that day.
And do you find that they're vastly different?
Yeah, I mean, one that does 1 million on Facebook might get 20K on Instagram. That might only get 2,000 on TikTok.
There's no science to it. No. That's the thing. And I did think for a while, I thought, well, maybe the content is more suitable to certain platforms than others. But the same video, like one can do really well on YouTube, and then the next week it will go really well on TikTok. And then so there doesn't seem to be like a platform that appreciates the content more.
No,
it does seem to be very random. But yeah, we've gone off on a social media.
A social media tangent. You could talk about social media all day.
Like I say, mate, it's a new beast, isn't it? And although it has got its downfalls in terms of time on your phone and all the rest of it, and the impact it has on kids and relationships and all that, it can't be denied that it is the biggest marketing tool.
I'm completely like, I don't pay for any advertising. I just social media, which is quite rare for like my trade, because a lot of people use Google ads, Facebook ads. There's like SEO, like people pay people thousands of pounds a month to get them the highest they can on Google. And all you need to do is get reviews.
Yeah.
That's what boosts you up.
Yeah, you're right. So, as Jake just said, review the podcast, please. But yeah, so tell me a bit about your trade then, mate, because one of the things we touched on pre-record when I asked you how busy you were, in my industry, I get booked up quite far in advance. Yours is totally different, isn't it?
A lot of industries, like joiners, electricians, because the Sparky could get a full rewire in a house. I don't really know how long they take, but it's probably a week or two. Whereas one job for me is maximum 3 hours. So I need 2 to 3 jobs per day. I need 2 to 3 paying customers per day to fill my week. Basically.
How long in advance do you get booked?
Usually around 2 weeks. So it's quite, and I might get to the end of that 2 weeks and then look at my diary and it's quite empty, and I'll be like, oh no. And then that night it'll be like a flood of phone calls. It always seems to sort itself out.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's always those little squeaky bum times where there's nothing booked in.
It feels to me, that feels incredibly like anxiety inducing to me sometimes. To bring in.
I do have regular monthly, like I have a contract with the care homes.
Okay.
So but I do them on an evening, but they are guaranteed each month, and I do 3 of them. So that's a guaranteed £1,500 per month. So if all else fails, I've got £1,500 coming in per month, which is enough to pay me and pay the business bills.
Yeah.
But it's not enough for any profit.
So you went from having a domestic cleaning business. How did you then segue into doing what you're doing?
I didn't enjoy it, basically. And I knew everyone's always said to me, you need to do something to do with cleaning because you love cleaning and stick to what you know, sort of thing. And I've had people clean my carpets before. And I sort of just saw how satisfying and like the job satisfaction and stuff that how he left my carpets were amazing. And then also sort of the price that he charged compared to what I was charging for the domestic, which was like £10 an hour. And I thought I might look into this. So then I started looking into it. And originally I did ovens as well. So I used to have like a dip tank on the van for soaking all the insides of an oven.
Yeah.
And then carpet and upholstery. I went for the carpet and upholstery cleaning, and that just took off majorly. So then I sold the oven dip tank, and I just thought I'm just going to put everything into this and see how far this can go. And yeah, here we are, nearly 2 years on.
What's the worst thing you've had to clean off a carpet, Jake?
I mean, I've cleaned poo, wee, but the worst thing I ever found was I pulled a sofa out, and there was about 3 years worth of fingernails and toenails.
Ooh.
That's the worst.
So somebody had been cutting them and chucking them behind
Probably
the
just
sofa?
biting them, and but
no.
I mean, there were, I don't even know, let's say 500 nails behind there, maybe.
Really?
I mean, it was just a quick case of hoovering them up, but
yeah, it's still nasty,
Yeah.
mate. That, isn't it? That's nasty.
I can deal with poo and wee all day. But
Really? Oh, mate, I've got a real aversion to shit.
Have you?
I really have. Yeah, like sick, I can deal with. Don't really bother me that. Like, and wee as well. Piss. It's a builders. It's a building trades podcast. So yeah. So, none of that, mate, really bothers me. But yeah, I can't deal with shit. I'd be sick.
I mean, I do care homes, don't I? So they.
See, I was thinking animal rather than human, mate. But yeah, I guess with care homes, there's the odd incident of that.
I mean, because a lot of the time it just soaks in, you can't see it. Does piss. So I'll just be cleaning, and because it's steam, I'll go over a one patch, and you just go, whoa!
Oh, really?
And it's just like there's wee there.
Oh, no.
And it's just becoming to steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does the system work? Oh, when you say steam, so how does it work? What is it?
It's like a steam extraction. So you're putting in hot water and steam. There's like a nozzle on the back of the wand that puts it in.
Yeah.
And then immediately you're coming back
out.
and it pulls it out. Yeah.
So after you're done, is the carpet wet or?
It's very, very, very damp. Slightly damp. Very slightly damp.
Right. Okay.
Because the heater goes up to 110 degrees. So, I mean, a lot of it just evaporates straight off, pretty much.
Have you ever gone into a job, looked at it, and gone, no, can't do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually when they've thrown the kitchen sink at it.
Right. So is it better?
It's better to leave it completely
and get the professional straight away rather than try and fix it with yourself.
I understand why people do, because that many things that you can buy from like the supermarket now, like Dr. Beckman's and Vanish, they're terrible.
Oh, really?
They're not good at all. I mean, how can something that's mass produced at £2.50 be good for your carpet?
Yeah, true.
It's just sticky. A lot of the time, people use it and the stain's gone, but all it's done is cover the stain up, and it's made that patch sticky. Right. So that's going to get dirtier quicker. Because it's attracting dirt to it.
There we go. Learned something new today.
Yeah.
I mean, trade related. How many trades do you deal with where you get, say, I'll go with us, go with painters, ring you up and go, mate, I've dropped fucking tin of paint on this carpet. Do you have to bail out many tradespeople?
Yeah, usually plasterers, painters and decorators. I had a door company who spilt like varnish on the carpet.
And can you get that off?
You can if it's synthetic.
Right.
If it's like a natural wool carpet, your chances become a lot slimmer. Not impossible. Okay.
Yeah.
Not impossible, as long as I don't touch it.
What about plaster, though? Because I know with plaster there's lime, isn't there?
Plaster's quite easy. I've got basically a beater brush, and you just need to break it up as finely as possible and then hoover it up. A lot of the time, that's enough.
Right. So you're best off letting it
solidify.
Set.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've got it's basically a giant CRB. It's called counter-rotating brush.
Yeah.
And you just run that over it as much as possible, and it just beats it into fine like dust almost.
Okay.
And then hoover it. A lot of the time, you don't even need to extract.
Worth knowing, mate. You don't know how many people this conversation will get to, and they'll be like, "Sweet, I've not destroyed my customers."
Yeah. A lot of people just panic and they just go on Google and it'd be like, white wine vinegar, use this, use that, and then they throw everything at it.
Is that right? Is there any truth to the white wine, red wine thing? What do they say? If you spill
red wine, you put white wine on it to get its bollocks.
Really?
I mean, it might get rid of it. It might get rid of it slightly, but
Okay.
it's not going to remove it all.
You heard this from Jake first. That's going to get clipped, by the way. I'm going to have to clip that one in.
You
But yeah.
you putting more crap into your car. It needs extracting out.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I don't know what the science is behind it, but I've definitely heard that
It
one.
might neutralise the colour, but the wine is still there.
Right. And the vinegar thing, I've heard vinegar. I don't know why though. I don't know why you'd use
There's loads
vinegar.
of different things that people. There's loads of different life hacks and cleaning hacks, and I react to some of them on TikTok sometimes.
Okay, are there any that are legit? Can you give out any life hacks, Jake? Is there any of these little TikTok hacks that are real, that work?
No, not really. The biggest bugbear of mine is shaving foam.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to use shaving foam to clean everything.
Okay.
And you just think, well, why is it shaving foam then? Why is it not bottled up as a cleaner?
I've never heard of that one myself.
I'm on like a Mrs. Hinch Facebook group, which is just full of like mums who put in, my son's done this, how do I get rid of this?
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. You said 20 comments, shaving foam on every post.
See, if my missus listens to this, she'll say, you don't know any of this because you don't clean. But there we go.
Yeah, shaving foam, that's a big bugbear. And sometimes I go on it just for a laugh sometimes, to be fair, but sometimes I actually comment to try and help them, and I just get bombarded. You don't know anything. I've been a mum for 23 years. Yeah.
I've dealt with every stain you can imagine.
It's like, okay, leave you to it.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Yeah, it's wow. I think I've learned a few things.
Best thing you can do with any stain is blot up as much as you can and leave it. Call someone.
Good stuff. And so obviously covering business. So business is going well?
Business is going really well. It'll be 2 years in June since I've become completely self-employed.
Yeah.
I did it as a sole trader for a while, but then I ended up becoming a limited company. Yeah, that's 2 years since I became a limited company in June.
Fair play, mate. Well, I hope it continues to grow the way that it already has, to be fair. Sounds like you know what you're on about. And keep on them ASMR videos and you'll explode. You'll be cleaning houses in Beverly Hills because I saw you on TikTok.
I did actually get an Instagram message of someone in Canada asking if I'd come clean an apartment block. And I was just like, as much as I want to, you ain't going to pay what I want to come out there.
Do you know what, Jake? I've had a couple of offers myself in the past. I actually, funnily enough, was offered some work by an interior designer in Barbados, which makes you go, wow, until you look at the details. And when I actually had the conversation with her, it was a case of being flown, and I wasn't getting flown business class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was getting economy flights over. I'm not a snob before anyone thinks that, but if it's for work.
And it's long haul as well.
Exactly. So long haul economy flight over. And essentially what it was going to be was land, work for 4 days and fly back. There was no downtime. While you're here, have a couple of days.
Just something you could do here.
Budget hotel.
Yeah.
Very hot.
It'd even be worse than working here because you'd be...
Exactly. Well, sweating. The only thing, they were like, well, it was a villa. And they were like, the villa's got aircon. I'm like, yeah, but I can do all of that. With it. And they didn't want to pay. It was a bit more money, but not enough to cover. By the time you've ate out because you're away, they didn't even want to put me in a nice hotel. Yeah. You know, it was like, again, I'm not a snob, but like a 3-star basic hotel with it wasn't all inclusive. So you've got to pay for your meal, but it was very much kind of sold to me that you get to go to Barbados.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, to work.
You'd probably be at a loss after you'd paid for all your meals and all that. Probably not far more than off likely. Anyway.
Yeah, but it sold with that hook of, but isn't it, exotic, I guess.
Yeah.
If I was going on holiday, amazing, yeah, fantastic, but not going there to work.
Yeah, no.
But, so getting back to yourself then, mate, I know the one thing I don't want to miss, you told me about some fundraising that you've done recently. Do you want to explain what that is and why?
So last year, March the 10th, we lost my uncle, who was only, I think, 43, 44.
Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he died of skin cancer, melanoma. It was diagnosed 2 years prior, so it took 2 years since his diagnosis to him passing away.
I think most skin cancers are quite treatable, aren't they?
Yeah, this one was a really aggressive form of melanoma, and his body didn't react to any treatment at all. they tried everything from radiotherapy to chemotherapy to, I think he had some other stuff. They tried removing the tumours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And his body just was like, no, I don't want any of this treatment sort of thing.
Oh man.
So yeah, we lost him March last year, and we've been fundraising. We did some fundraising last year. I did a 12-hour row and ski. I managed 80 miles on a rowing machine and a skiing machine in 12 hours.
That's incredible, mate.
So come the end of last year, we'd raised £3,000, and then was it last weekend or weekend before? We did a charity event, like a charity night, sort of a piss up basically, in his name sort of thing. My dad's in a band, so he played. My brother's in a band, so they played.
Right.
We had a DJ, and we did an auction and a raffle as well. And we came away with just shy of, I think it were about 7,300 and something.
Well
from
done, mate.
one
That's
night.
incredible.
So that's took us over the 10 grand mark.
Have you got like an ongoing?
Yeah, it's just an ongoing Just Giving. Yeah,
Mate, let me know the Just Giving details. I'll tag it in the episode description. And
Appreciate
if
that.
anyone listens to Jake's story and wants to make any donations, please do. The details will be in the
I
description.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's cool, mate.
The idea behind it is if we can help one person not go through like what my uncle had to go through, then it's a win. Really.
Oh, that must have been really tough for the family.
Yeah, it was. And he's got 3 kids and a wife, and
so that'd be your cousins,
my
obviously.
cousins and my auntie. Yeah, so.
Mate. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that. It's horrific losing anyone, but at such an age, I mean, it's no age, is it?
No, and the fact he caught it quite early as well, and it still only took 2 years, that's the mental part about it.
Yeah.
Just from one dodgy mole, so.
From one dodgy mole.
Checky moles, people.
Christ, mate. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I post it on my story now and again, some like how to check your moles and what to look for, and the melanoma do a lot on Melanoma UK do a lot on what the signs are and stuff like that. Basically anything that looks out the normal, really.
Get it, mate. It's better to get it checked, isn't it, and find out that you're okay.
Yeah.
Rather than not get it checked and not be. So yeah, absolutely. More, safety is key on that. So be cautious for sure. I mean, was if you don't mind me asking, was he in a job where he was exposed to the sun a lot? I'm thinking sun straight away with.
No, I mean I don't think he's ever been on a sunbed, and I think from what my auntie was saying, when they go on holiday, if anything, he wore too much sun cream. So
there's no rhyme and reason to it.
So yeah, a lot of people who go on sunbeds are probably exposing themselves more than they need to, I would say.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I know it's quite a big thing with like ground workers and stuff. They're more at risk because they're out in the sun a lot. Anyone in the trades that is out in the sun, and don't get me wrong, lads. I know you all look great. You get your six packs and your high vis vest and you the colour of like old leather, but it's not good for you. You're not meant to be that colour. No.
So yeah, that was last year, and then obviously we did the fundraising this year. And yeah, we're just looking to continue, really.
And keep raising the awareness, mate. Fair play, it's really noble.
The aim was 10 grand by the end of this year, and we've already hit that.
And has it helped you personally to give you that focus?
Probably. I mean, I'm always been big on charity. Even when I was in the Navy, I used to give a percentage of my wage to like the Navy charity and stuff. I do the hospice, like local hospice lottery and stuff like that. So I've always done bits and bobs for charity, but this is probably the biggest amount I've ever raised for a charity. Anyway,
it's pretty incredible, mate. Yeah, well done. Yeah, it's really good. But how have you personally found the last year negotiating that?
I was actually in Las Vegas when he passed away.
Wow.
So I left for Vegas knowing he was quite unwell, but didn't think he was going to pass away. And I actually said to my auntie, can I come and see him before I go? And she said, no, he doesn't want visitors today. So anyway, I went on holiday, and I sort of knew something was up on the last day because I texted my auntie saying, as soon as I get home, I'll come see him. And she never replied. So I did the 10-hour flight back from Vegas, and I just knew something wasn't right. And then, I got home and found out. We went to go pick my dog up from my mum's, and she told us.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough.
So obviously, my mum was crying, girlfriend was crying, my brother was there, he was crying, and I didn't cry once. Didn't even shed a tear.
Why do you think that
I
was?
don't know. Still to this day, my mum thinks it's because they were all crying. She thinks maybe I sort of tried to be the man.
But the thing is, Jake, I mean, everyone deals with bereavement differently. Everyone deals with grief differently, and there's no time scale on it. Like these things can affect people. You know, it can pop up years down the line, or some people can deal with it and process it very well.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's fair to put a time. I mean, it's still very new, really. I mean, 12 months is nothing.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I would say you're still very much in the process. I would imagine the events and the fundraising that you're doing will help because that
yeah,
puts a positive spin on a bad situation.
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
And obviously, I'm sure he'd be looking down and be proud of you guys for
yeah,
doing everything that you're doing. So all credit to you for that. And if that helps somebody, like you said, then it's been worth your efforts,
yeah,
hasn't it?
100%.
So
Yeah, I think also the fact I wasn't there when it happened was, I think, almost to me it hadn't happened yet
yeah.
because my mum and they were all at the hospice with him.
Oh, really?
So, and I wasn't. I was in Las Vegas. Um,
Mm,
so I think in my mind somewhere I was thinking it hasn't actually happened because I haven't experienced it, sort of thing.
yeah.
So I didn't really speak about it. Didn't cry at all up until the day of the funeral, and then I was the biggest blubbering mess in the whole hall. I
Really.
could not stop. Yeah,
To be honest, though, mate,
I think
you know,
from that point, I think that was when to me, it happened then because that was
made it
like,
real.
yeah, the realization was then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's as I said, though, Jake. Everyone deals with it differently, don't they? I went through the whole process with my grandfather. He died of lung cancer, unfortunately. And me and him were really tight. Like he was more like a father figure at the
Yeah,
time when he passed. And that was he went. He was salt of the earth, my granddad. But he was very fit for an older man. I think he was like 76, if I get that right.
yeah,
But he looked 10 years younger. He used to do long distance cycling still, and um, he had what we thought was a stroke, and it turned out it was lung cancer, and the
right.
cancer had spread. Ended up in a hospice, and as much as I was glad I was there, I also wish I wasn't.
Yeah, my mum said that.
Yeah, I couldn't have not been there given the option. I didn't know how I was going to react. I remember at the time when it came to the end, my mum actually asking me the question. She said, do you want to be there? And I said, no, I don't. And I was at work. I was actually working away. I was working in Manchester, actually. And I got the phone call to say, look, we've had the phone call and it's going to be soon. Just wanted to let you know. And at that point, I went, I'm coming. And I just, at that point, I felt I wanted to be there. Looking
Yeah,
back now, I don't know if I could change it. I would. There would, there's images that I now have to live with of him that I can't ever delete.
yeah,
So there's no judgment on it. As I say, looking back, if I could have not been there, possibly I would have took that option.
I think
After having gone through
the
that.
thing for me was I didn't get to see him before I went. Was the biggest.
Yeah, more to the point.
Yeah,
Yeah. But you know, speaking openly, mate, life's a bitch.
yeah,
And we never know. And there's plenty of people, unfortunately, out there in the world that will never get to say. I think it's quite a luxury, to be honest, to be able to say goodbye to loved ones because
yeah,
all too often things happen and we've got no clue it's coming.
yeah,
There'll be people that will walk out the door today and not walk back in it tonight. There'll be people that will, have had arguments this morning and not ever get to say those words. So
yeah.
it's not a rare occurrence.
No,
I
no.
wouldn't say, as unfortunate as it is. I think when it comes to bereavement, everyone would love to have that sort of the romanticism of it, the final goodbye, and I'll say the things I want to say. But I think the reality is all too often that don't happen.
Yeah, I think from what my mum said anyway, the cancer was in his brain, and I don't think it was even him at that point anyway. So
Yeah, it was the same with my granddad, mate. I went on the last day and he wasn't conscious.
yeah,
He wasn't conscious, and it wasn't a nice image. So yeah, it's again, it's a conversation we could go into, but the way sometimes we preserve life, in my opinion, beyond the point that we should. We treat animals differently, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to devalue human life to the point of animal life, but that whole not putting people out there suffering. I've got to word this correctly. Quality of life
Yeah.
is what it comes down to me. Whilst there is quality of life, then you fight for it.
Yeah.
But when there can't be, I think sometimes things are prolonged. But I think that's all I can say on it, really. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on the matter?
I don't think so. I just think, obviously, everyone deals with it differently, and I wish I'd have talked more about it. My girlfriend always used to say, "Oh, you never talk to me about it," and stuff like that, and I just used to just keep it in, and I'd have like a cry to myself in the van maybe, and
Yeah.
she'd never been on the wiser. So yeah, I definitely wish I'd have talked about it more.
Do you know what though, Jake? And I'm not trying to bring it back to me. I can just resonate with what you're saying. When my granddad passed, I didn't speak to anyone. Everyone knew it had devastated me because we were really close. But I didn't talk to anyone, and it was probably when I met my wife, and I would try to talk to her about it and just lock off and just go, I can't do it.
Yeah,
And it probably took me, I kid you not, probably 3-4 years.
yeah,
I can talk about it. The way that I've just spoken to you now would have been impossible for me. Trying to think, I think I was about 26, 27 when he passed. So, we're talking like 12 years on now, mate, and it still fucking hurts today.
yeah.
So, but I couldn't have spoken like I just did to you 10 years ago. I just would not have been able to, mate.
Yeah.
I'd have just clammed up, stopped. And yeah, so it's yes, talk, but also give yourself the time and the space.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's when you're ready.
I know my dad's similar to me, and he just bottles up, and he was the same on the day of the funeral. Just absolutely just went.
Yeah.
And he said he makes a joke out of it. He says that my uncle's turned him into a wuss because he cries at like films and stuff now, and he never used to and stuff. So
Unfortunately, those big life events, mate, they can have a habit of giving you a whole different perspective on things,
Yeah.
and you reevaluate your values, you reevaluate what's important to you, which is a kind of positive that comes out of a bad situation. But it does, it happens quite a lot. You speak to people who have, say, survived cancer,
yeah,
and then they turn over a new leaf, and it's reevaluation of life, isn't it?
yeah. I think it's definitely given me some pointers to work on for because that's the first time I've ever lost anyone. So, by like great granddad's like
Yeah.
yonks ago that I don't really remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, God forbid anything happened again to someone else. I'd definitely go about it a completely different way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you talking about it today, mate. Because again, it's like you said, you don't talk about it. It's a big step to talk
Yeah.
about it. And you're another voice adding to the other voices that have come on the podcast to champion talking.
Yeah.
For the perspective. So a question, because I remember when you said to me about coming on the podcast and whether it was a trade or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I view what you do as part of the construction industry because, again, it's homes. So it's like renovations to me. That's how I see it. But what's your perspective? So the question I ask, in fact, I forgot to ask the last guest. So sorry about that, Bryn. But the question I'm asking everyone that comes on the podcast is because the podcast is here to raise awareness of mental health in construction. What is your viewpoint or perspective on the reason why the construction industry is so adversely affected when it comes to men in particular that take their own lives and suffer with mental health?
I think a lot of it is not knowing where to turn to, not knowing, like, I've heard you talk a lot about the Samaritans and how it's not the last point of call. You don't have to be stood on a bridge to phone them. You can phone them whenever you want. I think the people's perception is that you need to be stood on a bridge about to do it before you phone. And probably the fact that probably a lot of tradesmen work alone all day, I would say, is a big thing.
Yeah,
Just getting stuck in your own head and stuff.
I think solitude's a big thing. I really do. I think a lot of us put ourselves in the position without really knowing we do it.
Yeah.
And you look back to prisons or prisoner of war camps, they use isolation as a punishment.
Yeah.
And yet we actively choose to do it to ourselves a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you yourself, you must work alone a lot.
I do, yeah. The business is just me, so unless there's a customer in, they're the only people I talk to.
How do you sort of manage that yourself?
Podcasts.
Whack the Talking Tradesman podcast on.
Yeah, I love podcasts. They just give me. I'm thinking about what's going on in the podcast, and if you listen to music, I feel like you've heard that song 10 times. You're not even thinking about the music that's on. You're thinking about something else.
Well, I think that's it. You put music on, and your brain is free to do its own thing.
Whereas if you've got a podcast on, you actively thinking about what they're talking about. It could be a nonsense podcast. Sometimes they're just humour podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be deep.
No, it doesn't have to be deep.
No. I don't know whether maybe there's some psychology behind it, that there's some kind of tricking of the brain that by hearing voices, you shouldn't really want to hear voices in your head, but you know what I mean?
Like actually hearing voices.
Yeah, that's it. But actually hearing a conversation. Some podcasts, mate, I mean, I can get myself absorbed in a podcast and almost feel like the third person in the room.
Yeah, probably is some psychological aspect, like you're involved in that conversation sort of thing. Almost like you're not on your own.
But yeah, it's my coping mechanism. Podcasts and audiobooks are where it's at for me. I probably, if I'm honest, prefer podcasts because it's normally two people talking.
Yeah.
Whereas an audiobook is generally a narrative, isn't it? But again, it still helps. It still helps, particularly the educational content. But yeah, appreciate that, mate. I appreciate the perspective. It echoes a lot of what's being said.
Yeah.
And I personally, I think that if we're aware of it, you can then take action to help it. You know, people who might be feeling a bit down and low at the moment is have that reflection to think, well, why am I struggling? And if you are actually spending a lot of time alone, see if you can do something to, make a little difference to that.
But sometimes my mate, if he's got a day off work, sometimes if I just want someone to work with for a change, I'll just ring him up and say, do you fancy working today? And he'll just come to work with me for the day.
Yeah.
He helps me with the care homes and stuff.
But maybe that's a subconscious thing that you're doing where you think, actually, I could do with a bit of company now.
Because I don't actually need his help, but it's just nice to have someone there sometimes.
There you go then, Jake. Yeah, to be fair, you're probably hitting the nail on the head, mate. You're almost self-regulating yourself there. So brilliant that you're doing that. But yeah, that's good. That's good. So I guess we're kind of coming to the end, mate. Is there anything that you wanted to say beforehand? Use this opportunity, mate. Final thoughts, promote your business, say whatever you want. Platform's yours.
No, I think what you're doing here is great. And I don't think there can be too many of what you're doing. So
thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
Obviously, I know Rob from MYH. I've met him a couple of times. We did a charity event last year, and he came and did a speech for me on mental health.
Yeah, no, Rob's great. Rob's podcast is fantastic. Again, shout out Rob and the MYH podcast. Me and Rob have had a couple of messages back and forth, and hopefully down the line
there's Lee Anderson as well. Do you know?
Yeah, speak to Lee. Yeah.
He'll just out of the blue. I won't speak to him for months, and he'll just text me saying, "How are you, Jake?" That's
no, great. The world needs more people like Rob and Lee. If we all took that approach, I mean, they take it obviously to the extreme, and the work that Rob does where he's out on site giving his talks, incredible. And they help multitudes of people. But in reality, sounds cheesy, but if everybody just helped one person, everyone would be a lot better off.
Yeah, 100%.
So, well, to everybody that's listening at this point, thank you very much for listening. It's a big shout out to Creative Branding Workwear, our merchandise sponsors, who I'm going to hook Jake up with some whatever I've got over there on the table, hoodie, caps and T-shirts that are all done by the fantastic ladies at Creative Branding Workwear. If you're looking for any workwear with any branding yourselves, give them a shout. They did this hoodie, which is mint. I do love it. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. And if you get a chance, please like, share, subscribe and follow the podcast. It all helps with the magic that is algorithms that I don't understand. But if you give me positive stuff, it's got to help, right? Thanks for listening.
Cheers. Thank you.